Rejoice, my fellow off-road racing fanatics. We are back underway. 2020 may resume. We are back on track, and this past weekend, we went back to GNCC racing action at Aonia Pass in Washington, Georgia for the Bulldog GNCC. On tonight's show, we're going to talk about the results of all the pro classes in this weekend's Bulldog GNCC. We're going to talk a little bit about Stu Baylor and what it means for him to not be riding and to not be on that Sherco machine. Speaking of Shercos, we're also going to touch on some breaking news that came out today that Sherco's Cody Webb will be racing next weekend's GNCC. And I'm probably forgetting something, but we're going to talk about whatever I'm forgetting too. It all happens on another episode back in your life, OTP Tuesday.
10 seconds.
Is this where the damn drumming and the music kicks in?
Yeah.
Welcome. I know we went on a little bit of a hiatus here as racing dwindled down due to the COVID-19 virus going around. It's kind of taking the whole world by storm, but nonetheless, we are back in your lives on the Pipe Podcast, another episode of OTP Tuesdays, coming back at you where we discuss what happened over the past weekend and what to look forward to in the weekend ahead. I'm your host, as always, Tyler Shepherdson, and today is Tuesday, May the 19th, 2020, and we finally got some type of normalcy back in our life as we were able to go racing this past weekend down in Washington, Georgia. Aonia Pass MX is where the race was held, which is also where round 3 was held before this whole COVID thing started shutting everything down. The track was a lot different this time around, though, as I'm sure all of you know by now, especially if you were down there. I was not down there, so I only have pictures, videos, results, and everything else that I've heard through the grapevine to go off of. But the track was ran backwards, and it was a lot dustier. It was a lot drier. It was a whole heck of a lot hotter, and there was a lot more leaves on the trees, which that's one thing that Josh Strang ended up mentioning after the race, was how different it was. And typically every year when we go there, there's no leaves on the tree because it's one of the first races of the year. So you can kind of see where you're at in relation to the pits, in relation to the finish line. And one thing that he mentioned is with all the foliage back, that you kind of got mixed up in the woods and weren't sure where you were at certain times. Obviously, one of the big stories of the weekend that I definitely want to touch on, Coastal Racing Husqvarna, friend of the show, Ricky Russell, went down hard. If you were watching along with GNCC's official, I don't know why I said official GNCC Instagram page, Stu Baylor actually took the reins of that and was putting up some good clips of everything throughout the race weekend. So obviously there was no broadcast of the race this past weekend from the Racer TV crew, but Stu did his best to keep us informed via those Instagram stories. Well, you could see on there that Ricky Russell indeed did have a bad get-off. I don't think anybody at the time knew just how serious it was. I certainly didn't, and Stu ended up saying a little bit later, when he first posted it, he said that everything is all good, nothing to worry about, but Ricky Russell crashed, and so that's what everyone kind of took it as. Well, later on, Stu posted on his personal Instagram saying that it was bad and that he just didn't want to get bombarded with questions that he didn't necessarily know the answers to. So it ended up being quite the scary situation. Reached out to Ricky a couple times, just gone back and forth with some messages. He's doing all right now. He is still in the hospital trying to recover. I'm just going to go ahead and read his post from it. He said, trying to smile as much as I can, even though it's been a very painful few days. Keep in mind that today is Tuesday, and the race was Sunday, so he's still been in the hospital. He said, thank you to the whole Coastal Racing team for all the help and love through this. I was having an awesome race Sunday. Felt like I had control of that number one spot with a lap to go. Caught up with Caleb Russell, and we were scraping plastics. Unfortunately, a racing incident where my calculations were a little off, thinking I had the pass made, only to collide with KR and send me into a tree in a very high-speed section. My handlebars caught my groin area as I was flying through the air, leaving a giant hole in my inner thigh. This destroyed a section of my femoral artery and broke my hip. For those of you that don't know, the femoral artery is a very serious thing that can cause you to bleed out quickly. After a successful surgery, I get to keep my leg, although I'm in tons of pain and it looks like I should be all right. Thank you to everyone who helped get me out of the woods safely and all my awesome friends who have reached out with the nice things to say. It means a lot. Big thanks to Amy Patterson at Amy Patterson123 and Stu Baylor at SL Baylor 5 for their help in making me as comfortable as possible while I am here at the hospital. So that is what Ricky Russell posted this morning with a picture of him and his pup Lexi in the hospital bed. And since then, it's gotten over 300 comments of all sorts of people reaching out, wishing their best to Ricky Russell, including Chad Reed. I was a little surprised to see that. Chad Reed even commented on there. But just tons of outpouring of support for Ricky Russell. We certainly hope the best for Ricky Russell. If you guys know Ricky Russell or even know anything about him, you know he's one of the nicest guys out there on the track. So certainly wishing the best for him. That is scary stuff. I mean, you're talking about one of the major arteries in your body. Your arteries are what supplies the blood back to your heart, if I'm not mistaken. That's very common. I mean, people, if you just break your femur normally, there's a good chance that you can catch some of that femoral artery in there and actually bleed out that way. So definitely nothing to play with. I'm sure not many people knew the severity of the situation as it happened, but reading that and looking back on it, that is a scary situation. And I think myself, Ricky, and everybody else that has anything to do with the sport is just happy that Ricky made it through that and that he is in the hospital and that he is able to post these updates. And no doubt it's going to be a long road ahead as far as recovering from that broken hip and the as he mentioned, giant hole in his inner thigh. So wishing all the best to Ricky Russell as he gets through this and will come back stronger than ever. But that was a big thing that happened over the weekend. So just wanted to go ahead and touch on that. Moving on to the actual racing action, it was a lot of close races and a lot of close battles. We start things off in the 10 a.m. Women's race. The WXC, the women pro riders, they start racing at 10 a.m. So that led to Becca Sheets on that Yamaha. She just switched to them this past off season and so far has been undefeated on the blue bike. So Becca Sheets goes out, adds on to her so far perfect season, grabs her 4th win in a row. Taylor Jones battles from behind the pack a little bit, battles her way back up to the front to within sight of Becca, but will settle for 2nd place. And then Rachel Archer, also on the Ampro Factory Yamaha. She put out a good ride herself as she is starting to become more and more of a familiar face up there on that podium in the morning. She grabs 3rd place overall, lands up there on the box one of our good buddies, Dustin Simpson. He won the Sportsman A class. He got 4th overall. So the top 3 ladies were out there rolling once again, as usual, taking the top 3 spots in the overall over some tough competition. So it's awesome to see that class is still progressing at the rate that it is. But that was how it all shook down in Washington, Georgia in that 10 a.m. race. Moving into the afternoon race, a lot of action going into it, a lot of anticipation. Everyone's excited to be back racing. The last time we were in Georgia, we saw Stu Baylor get out front, lead the majority of the race with 3 turns left. He blew the turn and let Caleb Russell by, and that is how the race panned out. That was a giant story in and of itself. Since then, Stu Baylor has lost that ride, which is a completely different situation to me. It's pretty insane that he does what he did for Sherco in the short amount of time that he did it. All sorts of rumors, all sorts of speculations as to what happened. We don't know the truth. Well, the truth has not been revealed to the public, but regardless of the fact, hate to see Stu Baylor not on the bike and not on the track this past weekend, especially after such a great performance by him, and I'm sure that has been eating at him ever since it happened. And so for racing to come back to action at the same exact place, at the same exact track, and him not being able to go out there and get redemption, I'm sure has got to be eating him up. But one person that needs no redemption is the 557 machine, the FMF Factory Red Bull KTM of Caleb Russell. He goes out there and gets the win once again. He too adds on to his perfect season in 2020. This obviously is his last season before he retires from full-time GNCC racing. So he's looking to go out with a bang, and he is doing that so far after 4 rounds of racing. But on the last lap, I guess it was the second to last lap, he and Ricky Russell were battling and swapping back and forth for the lead. So Ricky Russell was in the hunt, he was in the mix, and he was chasing down his second career win. And unfortunately suffered that accident that we talked about just a few moments ago. But Josh Strang would capitalize on the opportunity. He has not missed the podium all year long. Australia's own. He is the only other former champion or only other person in the entire field to have won an overall championship. He goes out there, gets a second place finish, just 4 seconds behind Caleb Russell. So he ran him down there in the last lap and was making some moves going after potentially a win of his own, but he would fall just short and end up in second place on the day, which is awesome for him on that Babaton line Monster Energy Factory Kawasaki, and landing on the overall podium, getting back up there on his brand new bike for the year. It was Pro Yamaha's Lane Michael, the 523. He's able to put his head down and charge. He said that he made some changes on his bike and can already tell that it's paying off, and we can see that as well as he finds a spot, not on the overall podium, but on the XC1 podium, because the overall podium was rounded out by factory rockstar Husqvarna Craig DeLong, taking the XC2 Pro Bikes victory, but his time was good enough after the adjustment to put him in third place overall on the day. So no doubt Craig is pumped on a ride like that, not only to go back-to-back in XC2 with those wins, but to end up on the overall podium. No doubt that he is stoked about that. Awesome to see that happen. We talked to Craig a couple weeks ago on the show where he kind of let us know how the whole Rockstar thing came about and his thoughts going into it. He said that he just wanted to get back in the right direction and get back rolling, and he's done just that as he comes away with another win here in that XC2 class. So awesome for Craig. Stoked to see him up on the overall podium and to grab a win there in XC2. Ryder Lafferty coming down from New Jersey, putting on a great ride of his own there on that Husqvarna. He will end up in second place in that XC2 class, and this is a stacked XC2 class this year. Ryder Lafferty comes up, puts his cards in the mix, and ends up in second place in XC2. No easy feat for sure, so awesome to see him up there on the box. And rounding out your top 3 XC2 riders was Ampro Yamaha's Mike Witkowski. We've seen Mike lead the points this year. We've seen Mike win races this year. And now we see Mike on the podium once again. So awesome for Mike. We also talked to him a few weeks ago as well, if you want to go and check that out. And Johnny Gerard, who we've seen grab some success in his return back, he just misses the podium in that 4th place spot, a couple minutes down from Mike. So interesting there that those top 3 riders really got in a train together and kind of took off and left everybody else behind. Ryder Lafferty ended up finishing just 7 seconds and some change off of Craig DeLong's pace. So as you mentioned, Craig with the overall podium, Ryder Lafferty was very close in his own right. So that XC2 class just proves that it is going to be a battle down to the finish, as there's been 3 different winners in 4 rounds. Craig DeLong, the first XC2 rider to double up on victories this year. And Ryder Lafferty getting back in the mix and ending up in second place, proving that he has what it takes as well. So definitely some battles to keep your eye on as we move on throughout this season. And we got some other XC2 news that we'll get to in just a moment. But for now, we'll move to the FMF XC3 class on one of our last episodes as well. Jason Rains, who does the Yamaha demo days for Yamaha, he is out there racing. Former XC1 competitor from back in the day, championship contender. He comes back a couple years ago with the advent of this FMF XC3 class. Ran some races here and there. He's been racing them again this year. He grabbed the win at Georgia right before we went into the break. He picks up right where he left off, and I want to say at 41 years of age, if I'm not mistaken. He goes out there and does it again. He gets his back-to-back XC3 win and ends up in the center of the box, which is awesome for Jason Rains. Jake Froman, your second place finisher in that XC3 class, coming down from Indiana on that Husqvarna. Just about a minute and a half, 2 minutes off of Jason Rains there at the finish. And Dominic Morse will be your third place and final podium sitter in that FMF XC3 class, coming down from New York on that KTM. So some battles going on there in XC3 to round out that final podium position, but it was Jason Rains taking the victory. And also got to give a big old shout out to one Phoenix Racing Honda's Brodie Johnson. We've talked about Brodie every single episode this year, and it is for great reason. He goes out, puts on a clinic at the first Full Gas Sprint Enduro of the year, comes out, competing in the pro class in the local races, doing well, getting on the podiums there. He actually just won the Mid-East, I'm pretty sure. I don't want to misspeak, but I'm pretty sure at last weekend's Mid-East race, Brodie got the win. But nonetheless, I know for certain that Brodie has gotten each 250A class GNCC victory this year. So he's gone 4 in a row, but not only 4 in a row winning that 250A class, 4 in a row as your top amateur at the GNCCs, and that is the reason why we have talked about him every episode, and we've talked with him on an episode as well, because he's out there, he's doing great. He's setting the amateur ranks on fire as he goes 4 for 4 250A victories and 4 for 4 top amateur honors at the GNCCs. So I wish I had more of some stories from the woods, but I don't. So that is your results. That is the way that it shook up. A lot of the reason I wasn't there, and a lot of you may or may not know, and a lot of you may or may not know me personally, but my dog Molly, she's been with me at all the races. If you've been to the races, undoubtedly you've seen her at some point. She's not doing too well. She's been pretty sick, and so basically just in a real rough position. She's got some issues going on with her heart that we've been dealing with, and so didn't feel comfortable bringing her down there to the race in the 90-degree heat. So we ended up sitting this weekend out, which really stunk, but at the same time, I got to do what is best for her in that situation, and didn't want to leave her alone and didn't want to bring her and put her through all that stress throughout the day. So very, very, very happy that racing is back. Very unfortunate that I wasn't able to be there because I've been waiting for this moment for 2 months. I love racing. I wanted to get back. I wanted to see it all happen. I actually had plans of racing the 3-hour race, and if I didn't race, I was going to take some pictures or maybe help out, do some announcing, things like that. Unfortunately, it wasn't in the cards for this past weekend, but nonetheless, very excited for racing to be back. I wish I had more stories to tell you all about, but because of that and because of work and everything going on, haven't really heard too much. I want to give a big shout out to our very close friend of the show, Big Thomas Caldwell. He's part of that intro that we got going on here. He had a nasty get off himself. He was racing the 25 plus class in the afternoon and ended up hitting a tree, kicked the back end out, and spun him around backwards, and he went backwards into a tree. Just got a brand new carbon helmet. It cracked the carbon helmet. That is how hard he hit the tree. Got knocked out. Ended up messing up some stuff in his neck and his shoulder. Nothing's broken, and he's going to be all right. But, yeah, just wanted to give him a shout out as well. Hope he heals up quick and is able to make it back in time for next weekend's race. Speaking of which, just got confirmation, just got news tonight that next week it is confirmed, it is official. We will be going GNCC racing once again in the state of South Carolina. We're going back to a fan favorite venue. We will be racing at Camp Coker next weekend in Society Hills, South Carolina. So that's big news that I'm sure a lot of you guys are all stoked about. It's one of the funnest rounds of the year for a spectator too, which granted with the whole situation of things, I don't know what the whole spectator situation is or what amenities will be open at Camp Coker, but they usually have that big pond. They got a rope swing, they got a zip line, they got a tower for you to jump off of. They usually do a fishing tournament there. There's like 5 different ponds. You can catch big old fish in all 5 of them. So it's a really fun race to hang out at and a really fun race to spectate, and it's a really fun race to race as well. So pretty cool that we will be going back to Camp Coker next weekend, and we will see a familiar yet unfamiliar face when we line up in the sands of Society Hill, South Carolina, as well as Factory One Sherco just announced today that their biggest star now is Cody Webb. He will be lining up in the XC2 class at the Camp Coker GNCC aboard a Sherco SEF 250. So it's a 250 4-stroke that Cody Webb will compete in the XC2 class. Last year, 2019, Cody missed the entire season. He had to get knee reconstruction surgery, ACL, the whole 9. So he was out most of the year. Obviously, with COVID coming up and canceling a lot of the hard enduro stuff, which is what Cody specializes in, he hasn't raced at all this year either. So he wants to come out to the GNCC and really just test his endurance and see where he stands as far as his physical well-being or physical limitations are. So he will be out there to do battle for 3 hours in his preparation for the upcoming hard enduro season, which I believe his first race will be... I'm not sure what that, maybe the Rev Limiter? I don't know. It's in July, though, so he'll come out. So far, they've only said Camp Coker. He might race a couple more. Who knows? Like I said, he's got time in between his first race, but he's going to come out there and see where he stands and really just get back in race shape and get a race under his belt and get that adrenaline flowing and try to get back in the swing of things, which I'm super pumped to see. We're used to seeing him going low and slow over the gnarly and technical stuff, so it'll be interesting to see how he does, especially on a faster track like Camp Coker. Camp Coker's pretty spread out. It's pretty wide open, and it's sandy. So very, very interesting to see how Cody Webb will do. And also going off of that, I've actually been back and forth with Cody today and been talking to him. He will be coming on the show the Tuesday after the Camp Coker GNCC to talk about his race weekend. We talked about doing a interview tonight. We talked about doing an interview next weekend so we can look forward to the race. But then we both ended up deciding on him coming onto the show the Tuesday after the race, and he's very excited about that. He said that he's excited to really soak it all in and share his experience as an outsider. So look forward to that, not next Tuesday, but the Tuesday after. It will be after the Camp Coker GNCC, and we will have Cody Webb on the show to talk about how his race went, whether good or bad. So that's some pretty cool news in the world of OTP, so we'll definitely be looking forward to that. Other than that about wraps it up. We're hoping that the season gets underway and ends as normal as possible. Supercross announced their schedule for going back racing. The next National Enduro that is scheduled in Georgia in June, that is going to be going on as usual. The next Full Gas Sprint Enduro, that is scheduled in July. That will be going on as usual. This weekend, we got a Mid-East race going on in Lawrence, South Carolina. I'm not familiar with what other local races are racing this weekend, but Mid-East, they are a former AMA Organizer of the Year. They are being co-sanctioned this weekend with the AMA East Hare Scramble Series, and it's just all around a great series. It is my favorite series to run. I've been running it since I've been riding a dirt bike, so Buren and the crew, they do a really great job at those. So if you're anywhere near Lawrence, South Carolina, and you'd like to get in a race this weekend, you can come down to the Mid-East. They will be racing. I will be there as well. Kind of playing that, hanging that on the edge, just with things going on with my pup as well. But right now, I anticipate racing that race this weekend, and you can too. They got their online sign-up open, so you can skip the line, skip the COVID, and sign up online so you can just show up ready to rock and ready to roll. But they are racing this weekend, and Camp Coker will be the weekend after. So now that we're back to racing, that means we're going to get back to podcasting, going to get back to the OTP Tuesdays, and I know that this one was kind of last minute as far as getting all the information to you, but looking to get back more involved and to keep those interviews coming with you each and every Tuesday. So we got some lined up already, and we will see you on Tuesdays from here on out. Look forward to, I know I mentioned at the beginning of the show, we're going to talk a little bit about the Stu and the Sherco situation. It's kind of a weird situation. I'm recording my thoughts on that in a kind of a different way, so look forward to that coming out soon. In the meantime, you can check out all of our old archive posts, read up about Cody Webb coming over, read about Stu Baylor leaving Sherco, all of that kind of stuff. You can find that at onthepipepodcast.com. I'm starting to post some articles on there, as well as all of our shows are on there as well. You can figure out how to listen. We got a voicemail set up. It is 475-2-CALL-OTP or 475-222-5568. Double check that, but I think that's what it is. We got a voicemail set up, so if you guys want to call in, leave a voicemail on that line. My plan is to play those voicemails on the show and answer those questions or any comments, concerns, anything like that you may have. We'll answer those live to kind of get you guys involved in the show, and that is your easy way to get on the show. So make sure you're calling 475-2-CALL-OTP. You can find that number as well as how all that works. Also on the website at onthepipepodcast.com. And yeah, you can see how to listen, the different places that you can listen, find links to our YouTube channel. You can do all that on onthepipepodcast.com. Check us out. Follow us at onthepipepodcast on all social media. And other than that, looking forward to get back in the swing of things. Looking forward to getting back to racing and really above all else, just looking forward to getting back to normal. So thank you all once again for tuning in and bearing with me over this time where we didn't have racing or too much to talk about. Like I said, I've been dealing with a lot of stuff on my own as well. But now we're back in action, and you can look forward to OTP Tuesdays once again. Thanks again for listening. If you enjoyed it, tell a friend, let them know. Until then, we will see you next week. Bye.